Hi Tony, good to see you.
Good to see you too. And before I forget, on the last recording we didn't actually mention it, but Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you very much. It is, yeah. It's the special month in the Middle East, and it really is a wonderful time of the year.
It's the end of your first week now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Ah, wonderful, and you seem to be dealing with it extremely well.
It's such an enjoyable occasion. It's the whole community comes together and people just slow down, lots of social events, and there's reflection and spirituality. It's a nice time of year.
Yeah, like an extended Christmas period.
It is,
in many ways.
Yeah, I imagine how England or Europe used to have Christmas that maybe half a century ago before it became too commercial.
Yeah,
it's a bit like that.
Fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Just to let everybody know, well, everybody, I'm being rather optimistic there and rather ambitious.
The one person that's listening to this.
Yeah, who keeps going and having a look at the same video, makes it look more than what it actually is. But we did a part one before this, which is where we were talking about the daily routines that you and I adopt, considering how we improve our sleep, or looking at how we improve our sleep, looking at how to minimize disruption to our circadian rhythm, what we do when we wake up in the morning, to hydrate, to exercise, to move, as you know, we both covered that. And also what we do during the day when we're in the office or at work, and how we move, and how meditation has helped us. So we crammed a lot in the last one, and I think people should go and have a look at that for more information. But today, I think it's really to sort of discuss maybe our afternoon, evening, nighttime routine, just for a few minutes, just to top out the daily routine process. So I'll leave you to start.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about mine. So mine's more heavily weighted towards the morning, and we covered that in terms of the yoga, breathing, and journaling. For me, the evening routine is much shorter and faster, so I'm not really doing a lot in the evening because I'm heading off to bed at 9:30.
Of course, your early start at 5.
Yeah. The big change for me has been, I used to be a night bird, staying up until midnight, 1 o'clock, and then still get up at 5 o'clock. And I think when I was in my 30s and 40s, 4 or 5 hours of sleep seemed to be enough, but I think it's really affected me, and I think that's starting to come back. So it's been really important that I go to bed at 9:30. So I have a meal around, I'd say 6:30, and generally don't eat much after that if I can help it. And try and not go anywhere near the phone anywhere around 8 o'clock, and I'm try and say I'm just done with the telephone.
Do a sort of technical detox, or mobile phone detox in the evening.
And just very little blue light around. I'm still watching TV, maybe reading, but not often. But the main thing is just reducing all the stimulation in the house. So all the lights go down, and that's been quite hard for me and Sabby, because she wants to look in cupboards or, do things, and the lights are going on. I'm going, no. So for me, it's almost like being pre-electricity. So we've now bought some USB lamp lights that I turn down to very low light. So almost like having candlelight around the house. And
so the ambient light around the place, so it's not intense, and it shouldn't affect the circadian rhythm, because it's not bright enough, even though there's light, but it's not in your face.
Exactly. So no down lights, just lamps, and even the lamps come off, and then the USB lights come on for me. So I'm really, it's very low wattage lighting, and then I'm in bed at 9:30, and I'm out by 9:45, and that for me has been a shocking turnaround, which I thought I would never be able to achieve. And it's by listening to people's podcasts, talking to you, following other people's advice, and it's made a massive difference for me. So that's my evening routine. But tell me about yours, because I think yours is very different to mine, because you have more time in the evening.
Yes, well, I do, depending on where I am.
Yeah,
absolutely, for sure. And I think mine's a sort of I've morphed over the years because I do love my exercise, and I know you do too. And when we were stuck in Riyadh for the COVID period, you and I spent a lot of time working out in the gym, exercising, and I know you still continue that in different forms. But one thing I was trying to adopt was eat a bit earlier. And like you, the closer I can eat to while it's light before it goes dark. And thinking your dad has a similar routine.
Yeah, he does.
He
He does.
likes to do
Yeah.
that. Because he only eats when it's light.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good philosophy to sort of follow or practice to follow. But what I tried to do is before I said, right, I want to be in the gym 4 times a week. I want to cycle once a week or twice a week or swim once a week, twice a week, whatever it may be. There were too many constraints, and because I was moving around so much between Riyadh, Bahrain, and the UK, I couldn't always adopt a set routine.
Yeah.
You know, cycle here, in the gym, blah, 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 blah. So what I did is I actually said that I will do a minimum of an hour's exercise every single day. Now, what that exercise is really up to me to determine where I am.
And what time is that?
I usually have 5 o'clock as my cutoff at work, and I'm getting more dogmatic in when I finish my work at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, as you know, things drift. So 5 o'clock, I usually make a point of getting changed, going upstairs, getting to the gym, if I'm in Riyadh, for example, hitting the gym for an hour, hour 15, and then I do hot cold immersion
Oh, okay.
training. And that's, well, it sounds rather grand, but all it is sauna and ice bath.
And this is in the sports centre, fitness centre you found in Riyadh.
Right. Yeah, and Fitness Time is quite close to us, 15 minutes away. So once I finish my routine in the gym, I will then go to the sauna for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to get warmed up, sweating, relaxed. And then I would jump, well, not jump necessarily, but gingerly approach the ice bath and go in there for about 3 to 5 minutes.
And why do you do that?
It's one of the things. I had an injury in my back a while ago, and one of the things that helped me a great deal, there's 2 reasons really. One is I needed to dictate when I turned my stress switch on. So it's all about the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system. Sometimes, because we have such hectic days, stressful days, switch can get a bit stuck, and you're constantly on the alert. Your cortisol is constantly flowing through the body, which I'm sure you've experienced it. I mean, we don't have saber-toothed tigers nipping our heels anymore, but we have bad emails, angry conversations, other things going on in the family or work that make us feel that we're threatened in one way or another. So the cortisol is constantly flushing through the system. And you end up with chronic stress. And that's when depression, anxiety, and other things like that start to creep in. So the ice bath's a long way around to get to that. It stresses the body and tells the body, now I'm going to switch you on. I'm not waiting and being reactive to a threat to come to me, a bad telephone or a bad email. Not that it happens that often, but if they come through, I don't have a control over that. But I have control, and the brain then says, stressor. For example, being in the gym, and the ice bath is exactly the same. Now, there's a lot more to that. Certainly,
So sorry, those 2 are analogous. So you're saying that if you can cope with the shock of cold water, and you can train your mind to not panic and react to that, then it's analogous to saying if you have a stressful moment in your life, you can, or acute pain, or you think it's acute pain,
you're training yourself
to actually switch it on or off or react to it when you choose to react to it, rather than automatically.
Absolutely.
So you're not always constantly in pain, because you can say, actually, this isn't me burning my hand in the fire. It's a different type of pain, which I can control.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And with that switch, like any mechanical switches, and I know we're talking metaphorically with the switch, but they can get stuck, a bit rusty, a bit stiff. So even in the brain, forcing it into saying, this is a stressor.
Yeah.
Whether you're going into the gym or you're going into the ice bath, you're forcing it into that position. And then when it's finished, it's much easier to come back out again and relax.
Yeah.
So that's one
So
of
you
the
force the on and off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than always being wedged on.
That's right. Or being stuck. So you're constant. I mean, you'll know if you are constantly stuck, because what happens is that you're always anxious. And I know we discussed this last time about how your meditation has helped you become less anxious and concerned about things.
Yeah.
Same with me too.
Yeah.
You know, and I think these little hot, cold immersion therapy training starts to train the mind to be on and off. It's a very clear switch. But the other benefit, the second benefit of ice baths, is that I have noticed a clear difference in how quickly I recover from a gym session.
Right.
And if I'm doing 3 or 4 a week, especially at my mature age, for years, especially when we were working out during COVID, I would notice that the second day wasn't too bad. The third day, I'd get really stiff, you know, if I didn't do anything at all, no extra stretching or anything. But since I've been doing the sauna, and also more importantly the ice bath, I've had no stiffness.
Really?
At all. At all. No matter how many times I work out, no matter how long the training session is, as long as I do about 3 or 4 ice baths a week, I'm finding I get absolutely zero stiffness or aches and pains.
Wow, okay. Was it doing something to the muscles or tendons or ligaments?
What it is, I think it's sort of a bit like the switch in the brain for the stress factor, is that it moves blood away and into the internal organs when you get so cold.
Yeah.
But then when you come out of the ice cold bath, blood rushes into those areas to help with the repair process. Whereas it's not doing that if you've not had that cold temperature to make it happen. Now, I'm sure there's some scientific explanation that we can probably find out for one of our next talks that we have to maybe clarify that a little bit better. But I just know whatever the reason, it works.
So you're doing it to move that switch from on to off for stress. You're doing it to help you with aches and pains around exercise. But how are you actually doing it? Are you doing it by just gritting your teeth and going in the cold ice bath, or are you doing it by panting, or how do you do it? How do you acclimatize yourself to the shock of the change in temperature?
I think I've always been, my favourite time of the year is winter. You know,
right.
Skiing, whether it's downhill or cross country, is something I embrace whenever I can and I get the opportunity. So being in the cold has never bothered me. I'm never one for pulling back. I mean, I often have cold showers in the morning once I've had the hot shower, you know, cleaned off, and finish with a minute or 2 minutes of cold water. So yes, there's always going to be that sucking in of breath when you step into an ice bath or a very cold cold jacuzzi, for example, because it's an instant reaction. But you know the reason why you're getting in and the purpose of why you're getting in is enough to do it.
I know for Sabi, who's just recently been introduced to cold plunge pools and things, because I said to her, is it going to be like panting or deep breathing that gets you through the shock? And she said, no, actually, there's for her, it's 2 things. One is peer pressure. So when she's with somebody else...
Never to be underestimated.
Yeah. So when she's with somebody else who's looking extremely chilled out and cool, like you probably are, she thinks it would be rather embarrassing if you just rushed out. And the other one is chatting. So because she's chatting to somebody, it all distracts her, and before you know it, she's acclimatized to it, and she's there for I think she's actually in for about 7 to 8 minutes, whereas I thought you'd just be in for 30 seconds and then run out.
I guess, yes, and that's a form of distraction.
Yeah.
You know, you're distracting from the fact that you're in a very cold environment. Now, I'm not sure how cold the dip is.
It's not as cold as what you're doing.
Well, they vary, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you can get real ice baths. I mean, you're breaking the ice on the top in 1 or 2 degrees,
yeah.
You know, if not 0, or it won't be 0, well, it could be. But, you know, you can go all the way up to 16 degrees, but it will still do the trick.
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be freezing. It'll be whatever you can get to, whether it's a cold shower or a bath. But you're right, having a distraction will help. I mean, I generally start to go and do my breathing techniques, my box breathing, which we discussed on the previous talk. But there's other breathing techniques I would do just to calm myself down whilst I'm in there. And that aligns itself to the discussion we just had, which is to train my brain to say, this is cold, but it's not a threat.
I don't know if we're okay for time, so let's, how are we doing for time?
I think we've gone past our 10-minute schedule, just a little bit. So what we'll do, just to save on bandwidth, and
15 minutes already.
I think so, yes.
We've still got the rest of your evening routine to go.
Should we call a quit on the part 2 for this one, and then we'll find our lone subscriber and see if they want to listen to part 3. In part 1 and part 2, we covered the morning and sort of afternoon, and we're sort of gradually moving into the evening now.
Most of the previous one was taken by a little bit about my nighttime routine, but primarily about how you're doing hot and cold and how you're coping with that and the benefits of it as well. So what happens after you've done that? Then you're heading back to your house in
wherever
Riyadh.
I happen to be.
Yeah.
And I'm using Riyadh as a typical example because I'm more in control of that environment. But just to clarify, when I do the hot-cold immersion therapy, I always finish on the ice bath.
Okay.
Just as a point of reference, because some people think that they need to go and get a shower. No, don't. Finish on the cold and let the body naturally warm up after that. So just as a point. Then I would head back, and that's when I would grab something to eat. And because I'm cooking for myself when I'm in Riyadh, I generally do have some meals pre-prepared that Karen or Sandia has put together for me that I've boxed up and taken with me for the week or 10 days or however long I'm there for, which is always a nice treat. But I do try to eat before 8 o'clock because I don't want to eat too much before I go to the gym, so I have to do the gym first, come back from that, and then eat afterwards. But, lunch aside, because there's always that part, I suppose, as well. But I'll always try to have a good proportion of protein and fats and a little bit of carbohydrates as well. And if I have a main meal, I'll always try to have a side salad with green and peppers and onions and as much vegetables and some fruits as I can put in there, and always with olive oil and balsamic vinegar just to round everything off. But I know that I probably eat a little bit too much because I prepare too much food when I'm eating about 7:30, 8 o'clock. But that's all I have to work with, really. And whilst I'm in Riyadh anyway, because I'm usually in bed by 10:30, 11, as I've mentioned before.
I remember those salads when we were in Riyadh were really colourful. There were seeds, olive oil, other things on them. So really wonderful, fresh, big salads. And then, as you said, protein and a bit of carbohydrates and good fats as well. And I know you sort of glossed over it fairly quickly, but to say that you cook for yourself is amazing because 18 months ago you weren't cooking for yourself, and then, or 2 years ago, and then you radically learned and you're doing all that cooking yourself.
Yeah, and I think, maybe in a future podcast we can talk about how you and I managed to get through COVID, spending some of that time together in Riyadh in the villa, and things that we learned and things that we did for coping mechanism. But you're right. I mean, prior to that, I loved food, and I still love food, and I appreciate good food, but I was never a cook. So I had to very quickly learn how to cook when I was on my own. And as you know, you and I shared every day, each one of us would do the cooking for each other. So it gave me an opportunity to learn and experiment as well. And I very quickly got a passion for cooking as well. I love it.
And your cooking's great. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed your cooking during the week, and I've enjoyed your treats at the weekend, like spelt pancakes. Wow, this is pretty cool.
Don't tell Karen, by the way. She'll expect things like that, when I'm back in Bahrain. But no, you're right. And I did, and thoroughly enjoyed that cooking experiment. The cooking experience was just phenomenal.
Do you have a dessert during the week, or do you have a sneaky chocolate hobnob?
Oh, if they're around, but I make a point of not buying them. I did make a bit of a personal rule for myself a few months ago that I eat 2 pieces of fruit every single day.
Okay.
So I usually save that if I haven't eaten it during lunch, is as my pudding after the meal. So tangerine or an apple, banana, apricot, whatever it may be. But 2 pieces of fruit.
So avoiding refined sugar.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then what time do you finish dinner, and you're watching a bit of telly or reading a bit?
Then I do my reading, maybe a little bit of study, language training, depending on what I'm working on at that particular moment in time. But because I make a rule, and I think you have something similar, is that I always leave 3 hours from eating my meal before going to sleep, because I don't want that food to sit there and congeal and go straight into sleep mode, and then it would just convert to fat. So I need to let it digest and go through the system for that 3 hours before I go to bed. So generally what I do is, once I've had my evening meal and I've had my 2 pieces of fruit, whatever it may be, I'll probably, if I'm in Riyadh, go out for a quick 20-minute walk after the meal.
Yeah, bit of neighbourhood watch.
And just to get some movement as well, and help the digestion. Keep an eye on the neighbours, make sure they're all okay, and but then when I get back, 3 hours study, bit of reading. So by about 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm pretty much ready to go to bed, and that finishes my daily routine.
You mentioned when we started talking about daily routine a couple of podcasts ago about journaling. Do you do that in the evening then before you head back? And you said as a cue you keep it on your bedside table, whereas mine's kept here. It's because I do mine in the morning.
That's right. I mean, we discussed that, I think, in part 1, didn't we? You did yours first thing in the morning, and you have a set series of questions, as I do, that I ask myself. But I generally do mine in the evening, as I sort of wind down for that 20 minutes before I go to bed and sleep. And I usually have those 3 questions to reflect back on the day, just to decompress, just to download anything that I want to sort of put down in my journal. And the first question I ask her is always, what was I grateful for today? And the second question is, what did I do well today? And the third is, what could I do better? So those 3 I usually answer in that order. And the what did I do well and what could I do better, usually quite simple and straightforward and fairly easy to answer. The gratitude one is hard. I don't know if you find that coming up with different things to be grateful for, or do you, in fact, throwing it back to you, do you repeat some of the things that you're grateful for on a regular basis?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. So I generally say the same things, which is I'm happy for my health and sanity. And even though I've been repeating that pretty much every day for quite some time now, a friend of mine recently had some seizures, and the seizures have affected his eyesight. So when he was seeing people visiting him, there were some really stretchy illusions. And he's been really strong and very upbeat about it. But on reflection, when I was thinking, he's coping with some massive mental issues, which maybe 100 years ago, somebody who would have been, without medical support, would have been thinking, what is going on with me? So rather than thinking it's a glitch in his mind, and the connection with his optical nerve and what he's seeing, you would have been concocting all sorts of different stories. So I'm actually just grateful for some very basic things like health and sanity, that I'm able to move around, I'm mobile without needing help, and I can think reasonably clearly.
No, absolutely. And I think there are, and you've identified one of key areas that you can be grateful for. But then just to try and expand my thought process on gratitude, I will look at, certain family members or friends, or my ability to maintain something that I've set myself as a rule to keep going. So I'm grateful for discipline, or grateful for the support I have to look after me, and whether it's in Riyadh or in Bahrain or in the UK. But also, I think about work members and teammates, and grateful for their input to ensure that we all become a success. So I tried to expand my idea of gratitude, just so that I think for me it broadens my view on the subject, but also it makes me think as well that, yes, I'm really grateful for the guy that sweeps this, the street outside the front of the villa and keeps it clean every single morning. And I see him and I say hello as I walk out for my morning walk. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for him and his input. And, to have a good night's sleep, the mind has to be rested. And the only way I find I can do that is just to think through what happened in the day. If there's anything that's bugging me, whether it's something I haven't quite done yet, or something I didn't do as well as I could have, or something that I did particularly well and I'm still smarting from that as in a positive way, or it may be something else that's on my mind. So having the journal allows me to consider all of those things. And as you rightly pointed out, as far as I'm concerned, if I write them down, the mind doesn't have to worry about them anymore. It's finished. It can be relaxed. But if I don't put it down somewhere, whether it's handwritten or on my phone or a laptop or whatever I happen to be using, the brain's aware of this, and it doesn't want you to forget because it's important enough to remember. So it will keep reminding you and keep running around like a little earworm, in the brain, and until you either do something about it, or jot it down, to where the journal, I think, has a huge effect.
And often a lot of things aren't necessarily new. And my thinking on this is that you have the wisdom of ages, and often that's encoded in religions. Religions often have the practice of praying before you go to bed, and you pray to whomever your deity or God is, and you ask for help, and you're grateful, and you reflect in the day. And maybe that's why religions have practices of praying. Muslims pray the nighttime prayer, Christians pray at nighttime before going to bed. And so maybe it's also serving the same purpose of giving the mind and the soul a bit of rest so that you sleep better. And the question I was going to ask you was, because I know you quite like measuring things. I know for me, this has radically changed how I sleep, and I do sleep 7.5 hours now, which is almost 80%, 50% more than I was doing before. It's just, and I feel so much better for it. But for you, do you track your sleep? Are you sleeping better? Are you sleeping deeper?
I do track it just with the watch, the iPhone, and I generally set the watch, the sleep mode, to wake me up at 6:30 in the morning. But every single time I'm awake before the watch goes off. So that's a good sign to me that I'm waking up consistently without the need to be woken up. And I'm consistently going to bed around about 10:30, 11, anyway.
That's a good sleep.
It's a good sleep, and it gets me my 7.5 hours that I think I need and I want to get. But, if we happen to have a late night and we're up watching movies or a Netflix series that we just binge watching, we don't go to bed till 2 o'clock, then so be it.
Yeah.
But generally I find that even if I go to bed at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, my body's still waking me up at 6:30.
I understand.
So there's no way around that. It's just the fact that you went to bed late. It doesn't mean everything gets shifted in the body.
Not for me.
Not for me either.
I'm the same. I'm up at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
If I have a lie-in, 6:37, that's it.
Yeah.
But this means that generally 80% of the time when you're following the normal routine, you're having a really deep sleep like I'm having. And I'm finding now that I'm dreaming again.
Yeah.
And I never used to. I think I dreamt as a child or a teenager, but I don't think I really dreamt regularly for quite some time, but now I'm having dreams, and brilliant.
Feels excellent. I mean, people sort of, and I've never understood this because, you know, people think, sleep it's for wussies, and you know, you only need 2 hours, 3 hours, and you power through, and you drive. And then, you think to yourself, hang on a minute, the human body is such an amazing construct. You know, from the eyes, the lenses, how your digestive tract works, the performance of the skin, and everything in the body is being hammered to a T. Everything. And yet nature will make you sleep for a third of your life, and it's not needed? I don't think so.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There's a reason why that you are to sleep a third, and there's a lots of reasons why you should do that, and why we sleep. Matthew Walker wrote a book about that in a great deal of detail, and I think people who want to learn more about that should read the book. But a third of your life, I mean, it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone does it. So I think it's absolutely critical. And here comes our cameo appearance.
Let's hope that 6 minutes
Almost
recorded well. Okay, so we can. I think we can talk about sleep a bit more, maybe on another one.
Yeah.
But that's quite a nice conclusion, maybe, to your day and my day. Let's hope that's recorded on my phone this time.
And I think we've finally got to the end of that daily routine now. Hopefully we can stitch all of these things together, but if not, we'll just post them separately.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.